Before using nodes became the default model in film VFX and high-end CG work in general, a lot of digital work was organized like a stack of layers with a timeline. But did you ask yourself, where did this come from? Well, the layers concept took off hard in mainstream digital art, most famously when Adobe shipped Photoshop 3 with layers, and then spent decades teaching the industry to think in stacked elements and masks. You see, early After Effects back in 1993 was using layered composition, masks, effects, transforms, and keyframes, basically a stack you animate over time, so this method goes way back. In 3D you can see a parallel idea in the long-lived modifier stack, which is basically a history of operations applied in order, where you can go back to an earlier step and tweak or disable it, and then the result ripples forward. If you want the cleanest example of Node's early adoption, Houdini is basically a textbook case. Houdini 1.0 showed up in 1996, and from day one, it defined itself around procedural, node-based workflows, not just as a feature, and not just as an add-on, but as an identity. While other software were still heavily timeline-driven and menu-driven, Houdini was already saying, your scene is a network, everything is a node, and everything flows through connections. And that early commitment, my friend, is what set up everything that came after. And you could really feel the advantage when production really kicks in. A director changes a scale, a hero asset gets updated, and suddenly you need 5 variations of a destruction shot by tomorrow morning. No problem, Houdini can do that. So Houdini scenes are networks of nodes, and those networks can be wrapped into digital assets, basically reusable, installable tools with controllable parameters, and that's pipeline gold. So instead of one artist's clever setup living inside one file, the studio can package a fracture rig, a scatter tool, a cache exporter, or a validation system into reusable assets, which are versioned, shareable, and repeatable. Then you add PDG and TOPs into the picture, and it goes from being a procedural tool to a full pipeline system. You can describe what depends on what, generate masks, and let the system execute them locally or on a farm. This means that Houdini isn't just good at creating effects, it is good at producing them reliably, at scale, across many shots. When people say Houdini dominates effects departments, they are usually talking about destruction, pyro, large-scale scattering, instancing, procedural environment builds, and so on. And these aren't one-off tricks, they are actually systems. So Houdini embraced node-based proceduralism decades ago, and that structure scales naturally into reusable tools, better task management, and the ability to make large shot pipelines. So when production gets complex and iteration speed becomes critical, this early decision to build everything as a graph turns out to be a massive long-term advantage. The reality is, nodes didn't replace layers because artists suddenly fell in love with wiring diagrams, but nodes won because they fit the shape of real production problems once things got complex. There is a point in every serious production when the layer stack just starts pushing back. At first, layers feel intuitive. You stack one thing over the other, tweak an adjustment layer, maybe pre-comp a few elements, and you're good. But once you are dealing with multiple versions of the same element, separate mattes, different color grades, deep data, and all the weird shot-specific edge cases that inevitably show up, that clean vertical stack kinda turns into a battlefield. You can still make it work, sure. You can nest compositions inside compositions, but that nesting often hides the real logic of the shot. Suddenly the why behind the image is buried inside a chain of precomps, like Russian dolls. And to understand what's happening, you have to open 3 or 4 containers just to trace a single decision. A node graph doesn't behave like that. It stays flat when you need clarity, and it branches only when logic actually branches. So instead of hiding decisions inside stacked containers, it lays them out spatially. You can literally see the data flow from left to right and from source to output. And in serious production environments, I think clarity and reusability matter more than comfort. In Maya's Bifrost, for example, you can build graph-based systems that can be packaged and reused across shows, scenes, and shots. And in Blender's Compositor, you're encouraged to build node setups as reusable assets. And what makes nodes even more powerful is how naturally they scale into automation and proceduralism, because a node graph is already a structured description of what depends on what. So the difference between layer thinking and node thinking comes down to structure. Layer thinking is vertical and order dependent, and node thinking is rational and dependency driven. In layer stack, complexity gets buried in depth, and in a node graph, complexity spreads horizontally, where you can see it. One hides logic inside containers, the other draws logic as connections. And when you understand this, you understand why almost everything, especially in big VFX productions, actually relies on nodes. In compositing, for example, the big inflection point is the moment node-based tools became the default for high-end film work, not just a niche reference. Back in 2007, Foundry took over development of Nuke from Digital Domain. As you know, Nuke is a powerful node-based compositing tool at the heart of its product family, and it is now considered the backbone of compositing and post-production work in almost every major effects studio. So you can only imagine how this software pushed for the adoption of nodes in high-end CG work. But did you know that before Nuke took over compositing, there was a tool called Appleshake that dominated VFX productions, kinda similar to what Nuke is doing now. So when Apple pulled Shake from sale in July 2009, it removed a widely used node-based compositor from the market, and Nuke took its place. Deep compositing work had early roots in Shake at WetaFX, but after Shake shut down, it wasn't a long-term option. So Nuke became the practical target for deep compositing work using nodes. Meanwhile, other node-based compositors continue to thrive using nodes like Blackmagic Fusion and Flame. On the 3D and texturing side, nodes became really important, but expressed through proceduralism and as at scale. Houdini pushed node networks and procedural thinking so hard that Side Effects Houdini does everything using nodes and proceduralism. It is great for the most part, but sometimes it can be inefficient, and traditional modeling software are kinda better in some regards. Mari, which is now under the Foundry, is a great example of how production pressures create specialized tools, as it was used in movies like Avatar. And they say that Mari was created because existing tools back then weren't appropriate for the complexity and detail needed on such big projects, and even today, Mari is kind of unrivaled. Most importantly for this discussion, Mari didn't just stay a fancy Photoshop for 3D, it actually became much more than that. Then you have the node-based scene assembly and lighting category, where the Foundry's Katana gained traction by being production friendly. You see, it is a scalable look development and lighting hub, with modern features leading into USD-based workflows, which I think is really important for movies and big productions in general. Now back to materials, because I have to mention Substance Designer, which is dominating the game development industry especially, because it can generate textures from procedural patterns inside node-based graphs. And this is especially important for building materials for different assets and environments. I would say right now, Substance Designer is basically the best friend for environment artists, because it can do so much stuff using its node-based workflow. If you want to see where the industry is heading, just look at Blender first. Blender didn't treat nodes as some hidden backend systems. It put them front and center. The shader editor, geometry nodes, the compositor, and so on. They are not side features. They are the core how the software evolves. So Blender basically said, the scene is a graph, let's work directly with it. And this mindset pushed proceduralism into modeling, shading, scattering, simulation, and many other sides of Blender. So nodes aren't just an advanced trick in Blender, they are part of its identity, and they are pushing hard in this direction, like Houdini is right now. What's interesting is that big legacy 3D software also moved in the same direction, and they have been doing this for a long time. You see, Maya always had a dependency graph under the hood, but over time, Autodesk exposed it more clearly through the node editor and leaned hard into graph systems like Bifrost for procedural effects and automation. Max followed a similar path, with tools like the Slate Material Editor and Max Creation Graph, which made node-based thinking explicit. And the big takeaway is simple. The industry didn't subtly switch to nodes. In fact, it gradually admitted that complex workflows like effects, shading, compositing, and so on are easier to manage when things are more visual, structured, and clear. And there you have it, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to this channel to receive more videos like this. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.